Indeed. Hello. Welcome back to the Radio and Television Business Report InFOCUS podcast. I'm Adam R. Jacobson. I'm the editor-in-chief here at Broadcast Media's Balanced Voice for business, regulatory, and financial news every business day. And you can find us right here at RBR.com and on this YouTube channel for the latest in broadcast media's best when it comes to regulatory, financial, and legal news. Anyway, I'm here on location in Kingston, New York, and the InFOCUS video podcast is presented by .fm, streaming social podcast to broadcast. To get a .fm domain name by heading over to get.fm today. And our guest today is Ryanne Saucier. She is the Vice President of Legal Affairs at Fox television stations, and she recently launched a podcast of her own that brings heart, humor, and honesty to the airwaves through conversations about grief, reinvention, and the often unspoken parts of becoming someone new after life falls apart. It's a story told from the average mom's perspective, and Ryanne joins me today to share more about her legal efforts for Fox's own stations, as well as the launch of her on-demand show, How Do I Do This? Welcome to the podcast, Ryanne.
Oh, thank you for having me, Adam. It's such a pleasure.
It is a pleasure to be speaking with you because for more than 15 years, you've served as in-house counsel for media and entertainment companies, protecting stories and the people who tell them. In today's environment, that sounds like something more important than ever. Tell us how you grew into your current role and how you're working with CEO Jack Abernethy at Fox television stations and the local market leaders to ensure your reporting is fair, balanced, and free of legal challenges.
Sure. I am so fortunate. I am a second generation broadcaster. My dad owned radio stations growing up in South Alabama, and he had a very robust news system back in the 80s and the 90s. And so growing up there, I saw the importance that local broadcasting can be for the community, for truth, and for serving the community. And so I'm very fortunate in the fact that I have only practiced in the space of broadcast media and entertainment law. In my role here at Fox, I have pretty much the southeast of our group of owned and operated stations assigned to me, and I get to work with amazing communities and with our team of journalism and our reporters, to tell good stories about what's going on in their community. I've been with Fox now for a little over 5 years, and along with our whole team of attorneys, including my boss, Chris Reed, who is the EVP that reports directly to Jack, we're very focused on, making sure that what we are reporting is truthful, that there's information to back it up, that has been, from a pre-publication status reviewed, but also the changing digital landscape, such an opportunity to tell different stories and really meet people where they are through the Fox Local app and, social media and things like that. So it's an exciting time to be a media attorney.
Now, not only are you an attorney, but you happen to be a second generation broadcaster. I understand that you started at the age of 12. Love to hear more a little bit about that. And you are a graduate of the National Association of Broadcasters Broadcast Leadership Training Program. I'm wondering if you can share a little bit about that as well and how both experiences led you to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned before, my after school care was hanging out at my dad's radio station in the 80s and the 90s. And from a really, really young age, I knew that I wanted to be part of this world. That I sounded like the Little Mermaid right there. But I knew I wanted to be part of this world. I didn't know that it looked like being an attorney, but I knew I wanted to have some part in helping to entertain and create stories. So I started working at my dad's radio station at a young age. He also was very tied into the Alabama Broadcasters Association. His name's Terry Duffy, by the way. And so I went to broadcasters conventions as a kid and just was exposed to this amazing world. And fast forward, I went to undergrad and I majored in creative writing and British literature. I minored in marketing. Again, I didn't think it looked like going to law school. I thought I might go to film school. took it to a few years. I worked on some music videos, some film sets. I tried on some other things outside of media, but nothing quite fit right. Because when you start passing out bumper stickers for a radio station at 12 years old and hustling at a remote broadcast, it gives you a little bit of grit, right? And so eventually I ended up in law school, and I walked in day one and I said, I am the weird attorney who walked in day one and said, I'm going to do media and entertainment law, and that's what I'm going to do. And so I worked really, really hard. I took all the classes I could, copyright, trademark. I also had started reading about copyright law when I was 16, because at the time at my dad's radio station, you had to fill out the BMI logs by hand. And so because I was so detailed oriented, that was my little part-time job. And so I was like, I started asking questions about public performance rights. And I was just a naturally curious kid, because a family business was our business. It's radio is what we talked about at the dinner table. And just have been very fortunate to have a lot of opportunities. And then when I heard that NAB had their executive MBA program after I'd finished law school and been working for a while, I said, well, that's the next step. That's the next thing to do. And my life has been, and my career, I've been very fortunate that I won't say I'm the smartest person in the room, but I am super passionate about our industry. You probably will be hard pressed to find anybody who's more passionate about it than I am. And I work really hard.
We've seen so many superstars come out of the broadcast leadership training program, and Diane Sutter has done an incredible job.
She has. She's an amazing person.
What class are you a member of, and what would you share if there are those out there that are still kind of on the fence about committing that time and effort into doing something so unique and so powerful?
Sure. I am in the class of 2015, and we are the class who, after our big presentations, there was a Vegas wedding. I may or may not have signed off on the paperwork for the people to get married. Granted, it wasn't classmates who got married to each other, but it was a member of the class who'd been engaged to his fiance for a while, and they just decided to get married in Vegas. So that's my class. As far as what I would tell people about investing in the time, it's hard to believe it's been 10 years, but people that I still talk to on a regular basis. We still text. They really become kind of your bunker buddies in a lot of ways. And we're the first to cheer each other on. We're the first, I know I can ask them for advice. The networking opportunities are absolutely unbelievable. But also, if you are like me and you think, I want to grow in this industry, you will never be doing yourself a disservice if you don't invest in yourself and learn every aspect of this business. I think what the NAB has really, in addition to my childhood background, has been so instrumental, because when I have an engineer call me and they need an agreement, or I have a creative call me and they're working through an issue, or a salesperson with a sponsorship deal, because of the NAB program, I intimately know how that works. And so I can speak their language to not only, serve their business needs, but also from a legal standpoint, but also really elevate the business needs, right? And so whether you're in sales, or you want to take, the station management route, or you think you might want to own stations, you kind of need to know about how all of it works. And then I think it also gives you a deep respect to what your colleagues do. I know that the people I work with at Fox, I feel so confident every day, even if I'm having a pre-publication review of a script, that they have showed up and done their best and given good work.
Well, that was just a little preview of what we're going to be talking about on this podcast with Ryanne. We're going to take a quick break, which is why you saw the screen kind of adjust itself right now, from our sponsors at .fm. Hang tight. We'll be right back after this.
Launching the next big podcast, building a vibrant social community, or broadcasting your brand to the world, .fm is your signal to stand out. Don't just streamline your success with .fm. Claim yours today at www.get.fm.
And we thank .fm for their presenting sponsorship of this InFOCUS video podcast. Hi, it's Adam R. Jacobson on the road in Kingston, New York, along with Ryanne Saucier.
Hi.
And she is the Vice President of Legal Affairs at Fox Television Stations, but also the host of the new podcast, How Do I Do This? In pre-interview conversations, you noted that you've always believed the most powerful work in media happens when intellect meets empathy. That means so much to us, and now you're helping our listeners navigate the complex world of being human through your podcast. How did the origins of this podcast develop, and were you prepared to go behind the mic or in front of the camera? I'm assuming it's a natural for you, given your BLT experience and being in the broadcast media industry since the age of 12, handing out bumper stickers. But certainly there is a learning curve, as we ourselves have found out by converting our audio podcast into a video podcast.
Sure. So I will say it was not natural. And honestly, some days creating the podcast feels unnatural. I jokingly say I'm building the plane as I go. But the origins came from the fact that my mom was a teacher, and I unexpectedly lost her. In 3 days, it will be a year. And prior to, I've always had a very good practice in the mornings where I sit and I journal and I meditate, and I really listen to my intuition about how I want my day to go, how I want my life to go, how I want my career to go, right? And so one morning after she had passed, I was having a really low morning. I was just really missing her. And I felt this whisper in my heart, is the best I can describe it, that said, show people what you're doing, Ryanne. And I wrote it down and I said, pause. That's weird. And I remember crying and just saying out loud, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how I'm going to live, because I was almost 45 when my mom passed away. Based on my life expectancy and how I take care of myself, I will probably have another 45 years. So how do I live the second half of my life without her? How do I do this? How do I mother? How do I parent? How do I, our moms are our very first Google searches, right? We go to them for absolutely everything. And so this idea was planted of show people what you're doing. My mom was a teacher, and I love doing trainings, especially with my colleagues in the space of media and teaching them the law. And the idea started to kind of marinate. And then I had a conversation with my boss, Chris Reed, and we were talking about some deals we had put together. And he made the off comment, Fox is really open to new ideas right now. And very sheepishly, I said, well, I have an idea. And he said, you do? And I said, I do. And I said, would you like to hear it? And he said, no, I'm too busy. I have a call or something. And I said, oh, okay. And he said, but if you feel confident about it, this is who you should pitch the idea to. So I did. And honestly, I had no idea what I was doing. I did not realize how busy the podcast space was. I didn't know where to start, but they were interested, and they said, okay, Ryanne, go do this thing and come back. And so I did it. And then they said, go do this research and come back. And so I did it. And it was just one step after another, just one step of faith, one step of faith, one step of faith. Again, not knowing what I was doing. And truly at any moment, I thought they were going to say, Ryanne, you're a really good attorney. Why don't you just go do that thing? I remember our first recording day. I was so nervous. I was trembling.
I know what that's like.
And I'm an introvert, and so it was really, really outside of my wheelhouse. I'm getting more comfortable in this space, but I truly believe, and this is one reason the idea came to me, is when I lost my mom, being the good attorney, I went looking for resources, because I'm like, okay, I'm going to read, I'm going to study, I'm going to figure out how to do grief. And what I found is there's a lot of podcasts about grief by psychologists and psychiatrists and religious scholars. And there's a lot of resources out there from people who are in this space, but I couldn't find something for just your average mom, because you do have some some resources from people like Sheryl Sandberg, who started Facebook, but not just for what I'm calling your average mom. I don't have a nanny. We don't have a chef. We don't have any family nearby. It's just my husband and I. We've curated a great friend group and family group. But, in addition to practicing law, a lot of times I'm trying to just figure out what to get on the table for dinner at night and staying away from ordering takeout, right? And how do I live this life well without my mom? And so I said, well, why don't I create it and bring along people with me on this journey, which I've been so fortunate to do. And it's been so amazing. And it's been great to work for a place that encourages innovation and creativity. And I love being the attorney for the television station group. But I also am really loving growing into this too.
We understand the subject matter is based on working through grief in real time with discussions about faith, mental health, physical wellness, and even sitting with a medium, as you just shared. Now, with the second season just starting, what have you learned from the experience of the first series of episodes? And are you tweaking certain things? Is there, more of an idea of, following a clock? There are some podcasts that we consume that go on for about an hour and a half. And you're just like, oh my gosh, why is there no producer? Obviously, you have the Fox television station's knowledge base at your arsenal. Just curious how the second season is transpiring compared to the first one.
Yeah. So my goal really, the first season was really, I was in fresh grief. And in a lot of ways, some days I still am. I've learned that for me, that grief is almost like a character that I'm partnering with. Sometimes she shows up really loud some days. Sometimes she's just kind of quiet in the background. And so my goal with all of the episodes, even with season one, is I wanted to keep it to 40 to 45 minutes, because I'm thinking if you are a parent, you're running carpool, you're coming home, you're commuting home from work. And so I wanted it to be enough where we could really learn something together, but not so long that you never come back to it. Like that hour and a half you were talking about. Personally, for me, I like podcasts that fall in the 30 to 55 minute space, right? So long enough to walk the dog, long enough to take a walk, long enough to, do some laundry and have my earbuds in. So the first season was really my journey. And then when we started thinking about season two, I realized through the Instagram page, and people started talking back to me, is that in 2025, everybody is holding some kind of grief. We're all carrying around these invisible backpacks of heavy rocks, whether that's career uncertainty, friendship breaking up, a divorce. Grief is all over the place, right? And so I said, okay, what if I take this idea of, I talk to my mom a lot, I ask her a lot of questions, and I talked to people who were a little further ahead of me on the grief timeline to say, okay, specifically, how do I do this? And so one episode, I talked with the award-winning cartoonist and two-time Pulitzer-nominated cartoonist Marshall Ramsey, because he's 10 years ahead of me in the grief line, and his boys are also significantly older than my son. And so I talked with him about, how did you parent your boys through grief? And so season two, I really wanted to be more sharing the stories of how people have gotten through hard times and their resilience, and what I could take from their stories, because I truly believe everybody has a story of resilience. We all have things that we've gone through. And so how could I learn from that, even though it might not have anything to do with death, and alchemize that into my life, but then also ask good questions of my guests so that people could hear these amazing stories and take away hope. Because yes, it's a show about grief, but what I really, really hope people get from it is that it's just a show about how to live well. And I don't have answers, but I can ask really good questions.
Before we conclude, I would like to share with our audience that I unexpectedly lost my mom to cancer in late May. And it was one day before she was to turn 80 years old, and just 4 weeks after being diagnosed with an aggressive and rather strange form of pancreatic cancer. And I think since then, I've had about 2 hard cries. And I know that she's in my heart, and that love permeates throughout. It's certainly been great speaking with you. You can find Ryanne's podcast on YouTube under the channel name How Do I Do This Pod. Can you share what really fed your mindset into creating a podcast? A lot of people don't really know how to channel their grief and mental health. I'm still trying to figure it out myself. There's certainly a lot of benefit from this podcast, and I really applaud you for taking the step to do this. But are there any specific sparks that led you to do this, and how important is it to talk on a podcast about grief and mental health, which are still 2 subjects that remain sort of taboo in today's society?
Yeah. So first off, I want to tell you, I'm so sorry for your loss. And thank you for sharing that. I think if there is any spark, and what really drives me in this is my mom was a teacher, and I have also been a person who, while I work really hard, I very much lean into my intuition. And when I start getting yeses, I should continue forward until it shows me that that's not the path for me anymore. And so Fox has been so great that there have been a lot of yeses. And so what drives me is I'm hearing from people on Instagram how this part helped heal them, something that I didn't even mean to say, or a review, or people sharing their heart, and it doesn't look like my heart, and that's okay. And so creating this community has been really, really healing. So what drives me is the fact that I think we need to be more open, especially for people like us who are high achievers, that sometimes you're going to have really, really hard stuff, and you're not alone in this, and that you can figure out what your best looks like from day to day, and learning how to give ourselves grace. You know, I'm a type A plus person. And so it's been a new way to think for me to say, okay, I woke up today and I have about 40% in the tank to give. How can I give that 40%? Because at the end of the day, that will have given 100% of what I had available. And to also say, okay, how can I alchemize these feelings? There's an episode coming up that we talk about the role that creativity can play in healing. And I think this podcast has served that for me. Before my mom passed, she was not in hospice. It was not expected, but she wasn't in great health. So I would call and check on her a lot of times during the day, talk to her almost every day. And so I now have this hole, right? And so in the spaces where I would connect with my mom, just to call to tell her what my son was up to, how my day was going, I now open my laptop and I create a reel on Instagram, or I create a way, or I respond to a comment to tell someone you're not alone. And I think, especially in 2025, when there's just so much that is heavy out there, that we all need a little place of hope. And my mom believed that and taught me that you can't stay stuck in your own yuck for really long if you're looking out and figuring out how to serve others. And, you know, that was, I guess, the theme in my family growing up with the radio station. My dad did food drives, amazing contests where they gave away money and cars, and, you know, collected money for the band, the local high school band, to have new uniforms. And so that heart of service is what really drives me. Is I have this pain that is so heavy, that is sometimes breathtaking, truly, in the truest sense of the word. But how can I turn that out and serve others and give them some hope, and show them what I'm doing, even imperfectly, that's healing for me and maybe can help them out a little bit.
It's been a real pleasure speaking with you, Ryanne. And you are based in Atlanta, correct?
I am.
All right.
If my Southern accent didn't give it away.
Well, I was going to say, I know that you are a Mississippi born and bred.
Alabama, but then went to law school in Mississippi. I lived 10 years in Mississippi. Yeah.
Okay. So, I'm not a Southerner, so I don't want to offend anybody from Alabama by assuming you're from
Totally fine. Totally fine. I've made the tour of the South, as I say.
And if you're ever in Midtown Manhattan, I can't really recommend Virgil's Barbecues. So we're going to have to go with Take Two the next time you're up here.
Sounds perfect. I will take you up on that.
All right. Ryanne Saucier. I got that pronunciation correct. And you're a pleasure to speak with. And thank you so much. She's the VP of Legal Affairs at Fox Television Stations and was a wonderful guest. We'll see you next time, Ryanne.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Okay. And with that, we want to thank you for watching this all new Radio and Television Business Report InFOCUS video podcast coming to you today from Kingston, New York. It was sponsored by .fm, streaming social podcast or broadcast. Get a .fm domain name by heading over to get.fm today. The InFOCUS video podcast is copyright 2025 by StreamYard Publishing. By Streamline Publishing, and is produced and distributed on the StreamYard platform. I'm just a little nervous here because I'm using facilities I've never used before. And I do want to thank the team at Kingston High School and their production department for providing the services and facilities for this podcast today. Also, special thanks to Victoria Guerrieri and the team at Fox Television Stations for arranging Ryanne as our guest. The InFOCUS video podcast is an offering, again, of Streamline Publishing, home to both Radio Inc. and the Radio and Television Business Report. I'm Adam R. Jacobson. Be sure to find us on RBR.com each and every business day for the latest in broadcast media's best business, financial, and regulatory news. We'll see you next time, and thanks for subscribing to our YouTube channel. Take care.